Welcome to a quarantined episode of Casual Cinephilia, where enthusiastic amateurs talk very passionately about movies. I'm Ian.
I'm Lorian, and today, since the movie we had announced we were doing next got canceled, we took an audience poll on Patreon, and we'll be talking about The Fifth Element.
Which is one of my all-time favorite movies. It is such a guilty pleasure for me. It's honestly held up really well.
It really has. There are a few moments, but not many.
Yeah, like, and by the way, we're going to be spoiling a movie that came out in 1997. If you haven't watched it yet, how dare you? It is a Luc Besson film. And if you haven't watched it, you obviously don't like movies, because Luc Besson is a gift to cinema. The old Luc Besson. Not so much, what's the most recent one he did?
God, I don't remember.
1,000
We just talked about it.
We did. What's it called? With the girl with the eyebrows.
I'm looking it up.
I'm totally blanking on it.
The girl with the eyebrows?
Yeah! She's got super aggressive eyebrows.
Anna? Anna?
No.
Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets.
There we go, Valerian. That one
did not see it.
Was a hard sell. Like, I watched it, it was unique. I'll give it that. It had the Luc Besson flair, but it didn't have the Luc Besson quality like Leon the Professional and Fifth Element.
Sure.
But back to Fifth Element.
We should probably mention there might be some weird audio because we are recording this remotely from our separate homes.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind.
We are many miles.
March of 2020, so we're at home.
Yep. Got the order to stay in home. Fun. Anyways. This movie is just fun.
It is fun.
Like, from beginning to end, it's just bizarre. Like, from the editing to the film style to the acting to the writing.
The
music. It is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, I don't want to say this in that I will sound super dumb, but I'm going to say it. But
excited.
This movie also kind of deals with themes, kind of woke themes that are being dealt with today. That
was a little before its time.
Yeah, that were kind of played, like the whole kissing Lilu while she was unconscious. Like, that whole scene's like, oh shit, like.
It wasn't common for the 90s to deal with the topic of consent.
Yeah.
So. And
then the main character, Bruce Willis's character, Corbin Dallas, such a 90s name, Corbin Dallas, regretting it and like realizing, I shouldn't have done that. Like, that was a mistake. And his character growth with that through it, is just a really interesting theme that they deal with in it that kind of went over my head as a younger person watching it.
Sure.
But watching it now, I was like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. It's a crazy movie. The costumes were by Jean-Paul Gaultier, who, gosh, this is out of your element. Mm-hmm. Jean-Paul Gaultier is a fashion designer known primarily for his high concept runway shows. He literally just retired like 2 months ago from like high concept runway. And I mean high concept enough that you've probably seen it in news articles about how fashion's going too far. He's like the kind of guy who will dress someone in like a plate metal mini dress for a runway. Gotcha. Fun, crazy, bizarre stuff. And he costumed this movie. And that's evident.
Yeah.
In the costume design.
What's funny about it, though, is there's some of it where it's obviously like, oh, that's such a avant-garde futuristic thing. And then there's others where it's like, yeah, you could tell that was avant-garde for the 90s, but I'm pretty sure I've seen people wearing it now.
Right.
You know?
But you gotta wonder, is that a response to the film or a natural progression based from the point that the film came out in?
Have we approached the fashion future that Fifth Element was predicting? Oh, man.
Or did the Fifth Element produce the fashion future we are a part of?
Ooh, what a paradox. I don't know. I feel that Fifth Element is kind of a niche film.
Yeah, I have found it to be less well known than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Talking to people about this episode.
Yeah, which is a surprise to me because it was such a staple for my childhood. Which, again, every episode we do makes me question my childhood more and more because there are so much boobs.
Yeah, there are so much boobs, Ian.
There's a lot of Mila Jovovich boobage in this movie. And I was like, I watched this as a kid.
Yep.
Like, all right.
I did not. You introduced me to this movie, I'm pretty sure. But that's been, over a decade ago at this point.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, no, it came out when we were 7.
Yeah. So
my parents weren't really watching a lot of, they watched movies that were within their genre. They're not sci-fi people.
Mm-hmm.
So they were not at that point flexing their film education muscles and seeing things outside their zone. So they have no idea what this movie is.
Yeah.
So this is your fault.
Fair enough. I mean, I'll take credit for it because I love this film. And, to that sci-fi fantasy feel of it, it's very fantasy. If you think about it, like the prophecy of it, the supreme being,
Sure.
It's set in the future. There's aliens, flying cars, and the entire third act, 90% of the third act is set in a hotel in orbit. So yeah, It is a sci-fi movie. But I think that's why I like it so much, is because it is that mesh of sci-fi and fantasy and absolute balls to the wall crazy, but also real emotion.
Right.
It's just an amalgamation of so many extremes that it somehow works. I don't know how it works. It's that Luc Besson magic,
Yeah.
Because they're...
Well, and to credit anyone else, he asks for such ridiculous extremes from his actors. It's important that he gets actors who are willing to commit to those extremes, which he did get in this film. You got Gary Oldman being absolutely insane. Bruce Willis. The character's written pretty well for Bruce Willis's thing he does.
Mm-hmm. But even that
he's there for it.
Yeah, even that he plays the straight man.
Right.
But it's never he's always along for the ride of the insanity. There's never a point where he's resisting the insanity.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, Mila Jovovich. Is it Mila Jovovich or
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure I've said her name differently every time she's been in an episode of ours. But
perfect.
So Mila
we do talk about her in every episode.
Every single episode. You just have to look for it.
Fun idea. Go back, re-download every single one of our episodes, find the mention.
I'll give you a hint. You won't be able to hear it unless you subscribe to our Patreon. Oh, God, that feels dirty. Never mind. Gross. Ignore that.
I don't know that we could talk about actor commitment in this movie without bringing up Chris Tucker, though.
So, I have every right to absolutely hate the character Ruby Rhod. And yet, he is one of my favorite characters of this movie.
Explain to me why you have the right to hate him.
Because everything about his character should be annoying. The way he dresses, the way he acts, the way he talks, the way he treats others in the movie is insane, rude, self-centered, and asinine.
Sure.
And yet, by the end of the movie, I love him. He's
Yeah.
one of my favorite characters in this movie.
I was noticing, I just watched the movie today. I was noticing he gets less ridiculous the more, like, YouTube culture evolves.
Yeah. He's very...
He would fit right in on YouTube.
Did Luc Besson predict the YouTuber?
He might have, yeah.
Oh my god. That's it. Ruby Rod is a Twitch streamer.
Yeah.
That's he's live streaming the opera.
He's a modern day social media influencer.
That's oh my god. That's funny. This movie predicts so much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Including Frozen 2. They have the same plot.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh my god.
I think we talked about it in the Frozen 2 episode.
That's right, yeah.
But it's still true.
Yeah.
The fifth element is love, etc., etc.
That's right.
Same plot.
Oh, Luc Besson, you genius. I want to go back to the characters.
Okay.
And the actors. I mean, Mila Jovovich as Lilu is probably one of the most adorable characters that could kick your ass. You know,
Sure.
The way she's introduced is very innocent, very pure, but you also know the power behind her. And it's great. I love it. But the character that I love the most in this is Ian Holm's character, Cornelius. Mm-hmm. I just love him. Ian Holm is such a treasure that he's such a good actor that will do a part like a bumbling priest for a fake religion that cannot for his life remember people's names.
Sure.
It is like there's one point where he calls Bruce Willis's character, which is Corbin Dallas, he calls him Mr. Willis.
Does he?
Yeah,
I didn't even pick that up.
Mr. Willis, and Bruce Willis goes, "It's Dallas." He goes, "Dallas." Like the whole thing is so like his character is just so endearing. Yeah, I love it.
I just really like Gary Oldman's character. I mean, he's the bad guy, and he's obviously ridiculous and slimy. Mm-hmm. But it's. I think we've had this discussion before as well. But Gary Oldman's one of those actors who just doesn't show up in any of the movies he's in. His characters show up, but you can never tell if it's Gary Oldman.
Right.
Unless you know it's Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
And this one is such an insane transformation. Mm-hmm. It's literally didn't know it was him until probably years after I saw it.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like if you put all of his characters side by side, like pictures wise, you're like, oh yeah, those are all Gary Oldman. Other than like the heavy prosthetics like Dracula or Winston Churchill. Sure. But the characters, I was like, oh, that's all Gary Oldman. But then you watch the show, like the movie, and his mannerisms, his facial movement is so different and unique to each individual character that within the first second of him being on screen, he disappears into the character. Yeah, totally. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, he is the character. It's not Gary Oldman playing Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. It's Zorg, you know? Right. Yeah, and who would have thought to have a Southern plantation owner accent to be the sci-fi villain? Right. But it works so well. It does. So a fun fact about this, and it's something that I caught on to, and I was like, I know something that the world doesn't. And then I watched it on Amazon, and the first blurb, that, you know, when you mouse over it, it gives you like, fun fact, is that thing. I was like, God damn it. But what's that thing? The fun fact about the movie is the main protagonist and the main antagonist, so Zorg and Corbin Dallas, never